All right, guys, that was our meeting bell, and we're gonna get started with an invocation. There we go. Lisa, if you could lead us off here. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, if you'll bow your heads. Yeah, Heavenly Father, thank you for this very day. Thank you for good health. Thank you for fellowship with other Rotarians through gathering and serving together. And thank you for all the change in season, as a reminder that seasons of our own lives are ever changing, and that the beauty that can be found in change. None of us are promised tomorrow, so help us to live this and every day as if it were our last. Help us to love well, to forgive well, to serve well, and to show grace and mercy to all those that we encounter. We recognize that as long as we have breath, we have purpose. So with each one of us, help us to live with purpose that will extend and benefit others well beyond our own years. Help us to live with a focus outside of our own selves by serving others with our time, our money, and our talents. We pray you sustain and guide the leadership of Rotary, both locally and internationally, blessing it with people and resources to accomplish all the purposes it is set out to achieve. It is in all these things we pray. Amen.
Amen. David?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Well, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. This is an interesting meeting because we're transitioning a lot from sort of the giving thanks and Thanksgiving. You're not hearing anything? Okay. We're transitioning from the spirit of Thanksgiving and holiday to the spirit now of the next holiday. And with that, we have the very first announcement. I know you're all here for the bell ringing training, but before we get to that, we have some business stuff to do. So with that, Susan Robinaugh, if you would lead us off with the holiday gift giving and start us off on that. I'm afraid you might have to, yeah.
Okay, that's never a problem for me. Good morning, everyone. So today we're here to do our first round of giving for the Salvation Army in Santero. These are families that we adopt every year, and we have 23 individuals. 23 individuals that we are collecting money for today. The club gave us as shoppers $3,000 to spend. And so that will include gift certificates for Kroger. So the families will not only have presents, but they'll have food. There's one family, a family of 10, 4 special needs kids being raised by 2 grandparents, 68 and 74. So I'm going to make sure, I called Salvation Army and I said, I need to make sure I know where they live. So where's the best place for them to be able to go shop? And so Lori Banfield was so kind to tell me that Kroger's would be a good choice. So that family is going to get a little extra because they're feeding 10 people. So they need probably about $200 is what I'm planning to give to them for food. And then they all want Bibles. And they want very few toys. But it's just like, it's amazing. Every year, they can only be adopted once. And when they're adopted once, it's over and done with. So there's so much need out there. And without our help, and we've done this for, I can't even tell you how many years, they won't have a Christmas. Somebody else would have to adopt them. And I have to tell you, our club and our shoppers are professional. And they get it done. I'm going to shout out to Bill Andrews, Kathy. She was day one that she got the sheet. She was back in my office the next day. I actually went over to the house and picked up the 2 great big huge bags. And she said, I just couldn't stop at $100. So it's just the spirit of giving. So I'm going to pass the basket around. You want to do it for me? That'd be wonderful. And I just want to say thank you to all of the shoppers. If you
Step
want
1, step 2, step 3.
That's training for pay.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you guys very much. Remember, the holiday party is next Friday night. we'll be doing this at the meeting next Friday and again at Friday night. And again, thank you all shoppers for volunteering. And if you haven't picked up your list, come see me after the meeting.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for starting us off the right way this morning. I appreciate that. We have just another couple of announcements. Like Susan said, next week we do have a meeting and we do have the holiday party. Make sure those of you, I believe we have pretty much caught up with everybody that's RSVP'd has done food choices. But if you haven't RSVP'd yet, or you're not sure if we have, reach out to Claudia, to myself, or anybody else to check and make sure. Cindy, do you have any announcements on the meal train for Daryl? Anything? Can you come up here and just?
Part there for everyone to sign. The meal train. Really? Oh, people want to see this on. So for the card is for Lisa Travis's mother-in-law passed away. As far as the meal train goes, Daryl, and as I said in the email, Daryl and Jeannie and his two sons flew to Florida last night. They got there okay, and they're coming home Sunday. The visit, I went saw him. It was great. But anyway, he is they'll be back Sunday night, so we can start the meal train again on Monday. I know Claudia's doing Tuesday, but that's all.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
So it's in your email. If you'd like to participate in that, please take a look at your email from Cindy. And one announcement, it's a quick one. January 18th will be a happy hour that is being done for the first time with Dublin Market. And let's see, Kent, I don't see Mr. Isler, Mike Isler. No, don't see him this morning. So just watch for more announcements on that. January 18th, we're going to have a happy hour. And again, next week we have a meeting. So with that, we'll have Jeff come on. Susan, do you have an announcement?
Really quick, Peggy Warmbrock is being recognized at the Chamber Luncheon, the annual Chamber Luncheon. He's receiving the President's Award honorees. So anyway, if anybody can make it, that's Friday, the 8th. It's a luncheon sponsored to the Chamber. If you need more info, just ask me.
So you can come to the meeting next Friday and then go to the chamber meeting and then come to the holiday party. It's gonna be a busy day next Friday. Jim, I understand you're going next as our sergeant. Let's welcome our sergeant as we usually do.
Thank you.
Uh,
Do I need this?
I don't know.
Okay. We don't have any guests that signed in this week. But I know that there are a few out there, so if you are a guest, would you please stand and state your name? There was, yes, sir.
Yes. The same car. From Dublin.
And a future member, thank you.
Okay, then, obviously, last weekend was a big weekend with Thanksgiving. So, last weekend was a big weekend with Thanksgiving and with it being rivalry weekend. What I'd like to do is, if your team won last weekend, you owe $1. Make it 5. Okay. Other than that, we'll move right on to this because I know that the presentation coming next is very involved and very specific. So the pot today is $20. President, would you please draw?
Jim, I can't.
Can't read that?
Yeah.
Okay. 9647.
All right.
Got it? Okay. Then we'll draw for the large pot. It's 9587. $9587. Got one? Okay. Try again.
Really? Huh.
You have 8-7?
All right.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Before we bring our Susan Robineau up to introduce our speakers, there's one holiday tradition I've always looked forward to at Rotary, and it has to do with bell ringing. Bruce, would you, you've done this for so many years, and it's such a pleasure every year. Would you please come, give us our mandatory training?
I don't know about you, but that's part of the holidays to me. No matter where you are, you hear that bell ringing and you think of the holidays, you think of Christmas, and you get that good feeling inside of you. For our veteran members and our newest members, I just want to read off a little bit about what Salvation Army does with Red Kettle Bell Ringing. It's their largest fundraiser of the year. 330,000 meals were provided last year from the monies collected from bell ringing. This includes summer meal programs for young children who otherwise wouldn't get a meal in the summertime. This includes meals for seniors that they take to the senior, sort of like our club does, and helps there. 330,000 individuals in Central Ohio. There's 50,000 people on basic needs, emergency needs they help. People who come to them with nothing and they need a little help, and they reach out and do that from the funds we collect at bell ringing. There's 17,000 people they help with Christmas assistance, and Adopt a Family with Susan's program that she just talked about is a big help of that. 1,200 individuals of human trafficking victims were helped by Salvation Army in Central Ohio alone last year. This is a really, really big deal. And for the past 25 years, our club has been supporting that with Red Kettle Bell Ringing. We do 2 locations now, both Kroger's, 3 Saturdays, the first 3 Saturdays of every December. But sadly, all of this is likely to go away. I'm here to tell you about that today. It's not my thrill to do this. I have inside help at Bell Central, and I received a tip from my contact at National Bell Central that said they are working to replace people with computers. They're working on an EB, the electronic bell. They believe that the blank spots out there, the times when the bells aren't ringing, would ring because of an EB. And behind all this is what we've all been hearing about lately: AI, artificial intelligence, autonomous kettles, machine learning to replace people with computers. But my inside contact at National Bell Central gave me a tip that I think puts a little bright light on this and a possibility for all of us. We might be able to salvage future bell ringing if we execute a simple 3-step plan, and it all starts right here. Affixed on the bottom of many of the red kettles this year is a monitor by National Bell Central to collect data to feed to the computers, so the algorithm of the AI can crunch it to figure out how we're going to replace these people. So when you're on your shift, you might want to take a peek underneath that kettle. If you see a black looking like a disc, it's a monitor. It's collecting data. Don't touch it. Don't try to scratch it off of there. That wouldn't help us. This being there, we're going to use it against this initiative. It's collecting data to feed to that computer, and the number one metrics it's using is bell ringing per minute. The sound of the bell, this. Blank time hurts. Bell ringing helps. So this year, we're initiating a simple 3-step plan. And it starts like this. Step number 1. No silent bells. We need to fill every shift, every day on our 3 Saturday commitment. Right now, we have an open shift tomorrow at Avery. We need to get that filled. We have several shifts open on the 16th. If your schedule has changed. If you want to be there, but you haven't been able to be there. If you can get a dog sitter. Lock the kids in the closet. Bring them with you. Bring the dog with you. We need every shift filled, so there's no silent bells, no ringing hurts, it helps the computer. Secondly, we got to respect the bell. Respect the bell. We need constant ringing. Not this. And then talking. And this. And then talking. That neighbor comes up and says hi to you and you forget and you drop your hand down here and you're talking to them. No good. Constant ringing. Veterans help the rookies. Show them how to do this. Right there's, this is all-star stuff right here. I'm just telling, this is all-star stuff right here. Right here. No carpal tunnel, nothing. Endless. Secondly, handing off that bell. In comes the shift change. You're glad to see him. You've done your part. I don't want to hear silence between shifts. You do that handoff correctly. Keep them going. If you're working with a bell buddy, someone rings, someone doesn't, someone's getting a little cramp. They need tapped out, come and get me, get over there, get the bell from them, move on. Constant bell ringing. Finally, third step. You've got to protect the collection vortex. Veterans, explain that to the rookies. The collection vortex. That's that zone in front of the kettle. Here's the kettle stand. There's the kettle. You're on one side, your belt buddy's on the other side. That V-shaped vortex is where the collections come in. Do not let it get blocked by people. That neighbor of yours who wants to come up and talk to you with their cart full of groceries as they're heading out the parking lot is blocking the kettle. Politely move them aside. That person that's coming across in front with their cart that's staring up at something in display there at the Kroger's. And they stand there just slack-jawed, looking up at something. That's kind of nice, but in the spirit of the holidays and what we're trying to accomplish here, move them along. Rookies, don't try this until you've gone through training with your veteran. If you're with a veteran, they'll explain it to you, but nothing works better than the spin move from where you are, overhand. You come overhand, spin out, push that part and move it. Be nice, but be quick. Need knows no season. 330,000 meals provided. 1,200 victims of trafficking, and we help. We're going to help with the adoptive family. This is all important. No blank shifts. Keep the bell ringing. Clear the vortex. And be the bell. Thank you.
Which I'm so grateful you're doing this last week when we had the AI guy here. Thank you. Susan, why don't we go ahead and start with Lily and Dr. Bob.
Thank you. How do you follow that? I mean, this has got to get you guys going, right? There's no question about that. Well, I'm really pleased to introduce our speakers today. Lily is a licensed attorney and serves as the executive director of Fund the Climb Foundation. She worked at the Attorney General's office for 5 years and as an agency director for the state of Ohio for 20 years. Lily served as the compliance officer for an addiction treatment facility prior to her current position in November 22. Dr. Rob is an emergency medical physician. He worked in the ER at Grant Medical Center for 10 years, seeing the impact of the, I can't even talk today, opioid epidemic was having on the community. As a result, he left Grant and in August of 2020, opened Base Camp Recovery Center, an addiction treatment center in Franklinton on the near west side of downtown Columbus. Please welcome our two speakers today that's going to educate us on Fund the Climb Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to present some information to you about the work that we're doing for the people that need help the most. As Susan said, my name is Lily. I've been here a couple of times. My daughters went to Dublin Durham High School and won Rotary's, each one won the Rotary Scholarship. So thank you very much for that. They're doing well at VO University. So a little bit about who we are. Fund the Climb is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to remove barriers that stand in the way of patients who are seeking treatment for the deadly disease of addiction. What we do is we help patients, we help remove barriers that patients face. So the patients that we see lack resources such as safe, sober housing, transportation, food, personal hygiene items. Fund the Climb was created to help provide these needs to patients so they can focus on the treatment that they really need. Who we serve, I don't know how to exit out of that. On the side, okay, thanks. Who we serve adult patients who are on Medicaid, who are fathers, brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, parents, who are suffering from the disease of addiction and want help and want to change their lives. But they face barriers to success, and we're here to help them. And it matters because these people, thousands of people are overdosing in our communities. I'm sure you know, or someone, or are, you know someone in your family, or you know someone who knows someone. So it affects us all. And we know that healthy people make our community stronger, and treatment does work. And I'm going to pass the torch to Dr. Rob to tell you about how this came to be. And it is his birthday today, so let's say happy birthday, Dr. Rob.
Thank you, Lily. So as I mentioned, I'm a board certified emergency medicine physician by training. I grew up on the west side of Columbus. I grew up on the hilltop. This is actually not a story I normally tell, but I just felt kind of led to say this today, is that this is really my neighborhood. This is where I grew up. These are my people. I left Columbus. I never thought I'd come back. I grew up in kind of a rough area, and I thought, I just didn't, I wanted to get, all I thought about when I was a kid was getting out. My father was an alcoholic. Uncles, addiction runs in my family. I've got cousins that have died from the disease of addiction. Even those that have died with Base Camp Recovery Center. I've got people that have died with Base Camp Recovery Center all around them, overdosed. They tried, they came to our treatment center and didn't make it. So this hits home for me. It's very close for me. But I left Columbus. I never thought I'd come back. Ended up having a family and came back. It's just such a good place to raise a family. And so I ended up back here living in Powell, and then eventually kind of got pulled back into the city. I work for MOS, Mid-Ohio Emergency Services. We do Grant, Riverside, Dublin, Westerville, Pickerington. It's a pretty big group. Full owner of that group. Full partner, owner of the group. And I've worked all those places. I worked out in Dublin. I worked right around the corner from here, but really gravitated back down to Grant, to that grittier population, which is where I grew up. So I spent 8.5 years at Grant. I worked nights, and so I sat with people that struggle with this disease I would meet them, you know, after they had overdosed and they'd maybe had some clean time and then overdose. And then met them with this guilt and shame they had about not being able to stay away from their substance of choice. I sat with families and had to tell them that their loved one didn't make it, that 2-year-old that they're holding no longer has a mother or father. And then I was going home for the holidays. My family still lived over on the west side of Columbus. My mom lives over on Hilltony Avenue, right in Hilltop. She'll never leave. That's her home. She's not going to leave that place no matter what happens. She's not leaving, right? So I would go home and just see the devastation from the opioid crisis from 2010 to 2020. And I just felt like more needed to be done. I read a study out of Yale in 2017 where they were writing for Suboxone out of the ER and they were referring people to a Yale Associated Treatment Center. And I got real excited. And so I went to the administrators of Grant and the leaders of my group and I said, we need to do this here in Columbus. We need to do this. This is working. You're having great success. We need to do this here in Columbus. And they said things like, well, you seem really passionate, Rob, but we're just not interested in addiction medicine. And that's not just, I have so much pride of working at Grant and Mid-Ohio Emergency Services. Those guys are wonderful. I don't, this isn't a problem with them. This is a nationwide problem. And this is the way it's answered everywhere. Oh, we're just not that interested in addiction medicine. We don't really know what to do. And so I just, that kind of evolved and that passion grew. And I just felt a sense of pain that if I stayed in the ER and didn't do something different, that I was going to burn out and I was going to die of the pain that I was feeling inside by not doing what I know needed to be done. And so in August of 2020, we opened Base Camp Recovery Center. It's all mountain themed. It's join us at Base Camp. We'll climb this mountain together. So that's kind of the theme. And it's been a huge success. And people get better when they get the proper treatment for the brain disease of addiction. And if that's nothing else I could send today, the only message I could send today, when people get the proper treatment, they get better. And so we offer wraparound services. We have physicians, nurses, we have a whole counseling team. We do group counseling, individual counseling, case management. We have a pharmacy on site. We break down barriers to treatment. So we set them up for success. They walk in our door, they have nothing. I'm talking a bag of clothes and nothing else. Not even an ID. What's it like when your car's in the shop? What's it like? It's awful for those 5 days, right? Can you imagine not having a car? Not having a car. Try not having a cell phone. Not having a credit card. What would your day look like if you had no cell phone, no car, no credit card, no cash? What would it look like? Right? And then you want them to get help with treatment. How's that possible, right? So they would show up with a bag, coming out from under a bridge, out from a tent. They lived in the woods, literally lives there for 17 years. Left jail, went to the woods, didn't come out for 17 years. Walk into our place and begin to change their lives. And they need a lot. And early on, we didn't have a lot of support. So it just came out of the budget. And for the first 2 years, we gave away about $1.4 million of unreimbursable services. Because when someone walked in the door, I treated it like an ER, and we just treat them. And if they wanted help, we helped them. That became really burdensome, and I couldn't get help with the city and the county, and I had to end that. Now we do Medicaid only. But my goal, and part of the reason we do Fund the Climb, is because we have this idea and this this big idea, this big goal, that one day we'll be able to return to treating people regardless of their ability to pay and be able to offer scholarships for them. But currently, what we do is we provide ancillary services for the patients that do make that brave step to walk in the door. They're giving up their best friend. It's what they use to cope for everything in their life. Things are bad, they use. They're good, they use. It's everything. You're asking them to give up. They don't have anything else. So we provide that support. We have housing. We provide clothing, food, all those wraparound services. And Lily came on with us about a year ago, and really that's really kicked things up to where we've been able to apply for grant money get donations and really support them the best way we can. Where am I at on time? I want to be able to offer a time to answer questions and
Let's take another 5 minutes and then. we'll
okay,
take questions.
why don't we do this? I'll stop here. I want Will to come up and talk. Would you want to take this last 5 minutes, Will? So Will, I want to introduce Will. Will, he was a patient of ours and is now one of our team members. And I just want to let him tell his story. He's wonderful with our folks and really meets them where they are. And I'm going to let him tell a little bit how he ended up at base camp and what we do today.
Good morning. My name is William, and about 2 years ago, I overdosed and got sick with pneumonia, ended up in the hospital. And it was like a life and death situation moment for me. Either I was gonna do what the doctor say do or just go back into the streets. And I was sick. I was introduced to drugs through a doctor. Never done drugs my whole life. But I hurt my back and he prescribed me some pain medicine. I wasn't educated about it. I took it as needed at first, and then I abused it, settled it. So from 2008 to 2021, 15 years of drug addiction. I have 10 children, a wife, and I was just running rapid. And this one particular day, I caught pneumonia. I was in the hospital and realized that I had to stay there for the antibiotics. And if I didn't get these antibiotics, that likely I would die with infection. And so they told me to stand. And then on that third day, I got real sick because I was going through withdrawals. And I decided that I wanted to leave. So I pulled out the IV out my arm, and as I stepped on the floor, I felt I had no strength, no energy. So I just cried like a baby because there's nothing I could do at that point. But stay there because I couldn't leave to go self-medicate. So as I stayed there, about day 5, I was getting better, and somebody came by and asked me, did I want to, get help from my addiction? I said, sure. Make a long story short, I was supposed to went to this one place and end up, because of the social work, I'm remembering now, they had a plan for me to go to Maryhaven and dose daily. But I ended up going to base camp because that name was also on my paperwork. So that morning, my wife was taking the dose at Maryhaven and wound up taking me out west. I wasn't a west side, I was more of an east side. And as I go in there, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to dose at 8 at Maryhaven, but this place don't open at 8. I think they opened at 9 at the time, but they were so excited to want to help. They took an assessment, and the place was actually closed. In the middle of the assessment, towards the end almost, I realized I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be at Maryhaven. So when that thought came, my wife called at the same time and said, hey, I dropped you off at the wrong place. And I said, no, I think I'm going to give this place a shot. And 2 years later, in 2 months, I'm still sober, in recovery. Anytime have offered me a place of refuge, not just to learn about the addiction. I didn't know nothing about the brain disease, and it's a lot that I was educated about that helped me in my recovery journey. And today I'm helping people. I'm giving back by working with patients as a case manager, and it's just the opportunity is just present for me. And Dr. Rob is actually my angel, I believe, in disguise. When a person has a heart to do something, it all comes together, And the purpose is to save lives. And it's good to be part of that. I don't have to go looking for drugs anymore. Me and my family, we back together. Actually, I got grandchildren now. And if it wasn't for Ended up at base camp. I don't know what would happen. I believe I would have been dead in my grave. But thank God that I'm not. So it's important to be educated. And base camp is a place that you can come and get education and get the help that you need. So, you know, I encourage this. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. I just want to, I want to open the floor for questions and answering questions that you might have. But before that, I do want to acknowledge Denisa is a board member for Fund the Climb. We thank her for all her help with the work that we do. So thank you, Denisa. Any questions that people might have that I can answer or that you might want to have for Will or any of us up here, I'm happy to pass the microphone around. Go ahead.
How long is your waiting list? Or do you have one?
Yeah, so good question. We don't have one as of now. And so we basically I run it like an emergency room. So we don't even have appointments. So when someone shows up, we initiate an intake process immediately. So when someone asks help for drugs or alcohol, the opportunity for change is hours to days, it's not weeks. If I scheduled an appointment for them next Tuesday at 2, they would never make it. When they ask for help, you have to help them then. So the opportunity is very, very short. If we can intervene there, that's where we can really make a difference because they've kind of reached the end of the rope. If they return to use, if they walk out our door and they return to use, we don't know when they might come back and they may die out there. They may never come back. So it's very much, I don't know if that answers your question. Okay, good.
You're not a residential. You're not
Yeah.
residential.
Good question.
I mean, like, where,
Yeah,
say people come out of the woods.
that's right.
Where do they go then?
Yeah, so
Where do they go?
that's right. Can you imagine? We have patients that say that, you know, early on they would say, especially when we have housing now that we provide sober living with vans that we drive to and from. But we have patients that would come to us and say, can I sleep in your bushes because I feel safer there than sleeping behind the dumpster at the UDF down the street. So
My daughter works at she was clinical mental health counselor and she works at a residential facility for women with substance use issues, and they can stay there a certain amount of time.
yes,
So that is residential. for
Yes.
them. But then, you know.
that's right. So residential.
then you go out, so it's still, yeah.
That's right. So residential is usually like 30 days, you know, they'll do like a 30-day residential. And then you go to outpatient, which is a place where you're living at home and you come daily for treatment. And so like a Dublin Springs would be a place like that. And which makes sense for those that may live in Dublin or Powell. But for us, our patients don't have a home to go back to. So that's why we're providing all the support, where we have houses sprinkled throughout the neighborhood. And that are, usually there's probably 5 people that live in these houses, and one will be someone that may be a little bit longer in recovery, may have, you know, 4, 5, 6 months, that kind of is like the house leader. But we have trouble even in those houses where we have to keep a really close watch on things. Everything's very regimented. They have other things they have to do even beyond going to treatment. We have them going to meetings in the evenings. We keep them busy because if we don't, their minds are just, you know, they'll find other things to do. And so there's a system and process in which we have in place to try to get them out of that really vulnerable time. Because the first few months is really vulnerable. If we can get them to 1 year, they're in a good spot to go on the rest of life and be clean and sober and do well. And our patients can do really well. Why? Because if you think about it, if I said, okay, there's free drugs, you know, 10 miles away, you have to walk on your hands and knees to get to it. Our patients would do that. They literally do anything for their drug of choice, give up food, give up everything for their drug of choice, right? So what does it take to be successful in life? Never take no for an answer. Overcome all odds. Do whatever it takes no matter what, right? That's what it takes to be successful in life. So they have the training. It's just kind of dialing them back on the stuff that they've got, kind of the bad coping skills and some of the negative things that they, and really redirecting that in the right direction. And there's really nothing they can't accomplish. I sit in the rooms and I say this all the time. When we go into Jackson Pike, we speak at the Franklin County Corrections. We go down there every Friday at noon. And, you know, I sit in that room and I just tell these inmates, I say, you know, every good story starts right here. It starts at the bottom, doesn't start at the top. Good stories start right here. And I see so much potential in this room because I know what you guys have done to get, because all of the ones that they give us at Jackson Pike are all, it's substance use related. So I'm saying, hey, I know what you guys did to get you very close. It led you here, but I know all the times that you were able to score what you needed and overcame all things. So.
I've worked with the addiction medicine for 10 years in Springfield.
Thank you.
Most of my patients, I found they were smart. Maybe they were too smart for their own good. 40% of them started by the doctors. And I can say, for the 50 years I practiced, not even one patient to be addicted. Several of them complained to the medical board that I'm not giving them enough pain medication.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your work in this field. You had something you went.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. One of the questions is, and Denise, thank you. You prepped me really well to understand what's happening and what the whole Climb the Foundation is working on. Can you tell us just a minute about some materials that you have here? If we were interested in helping, or what would you want to share? The other thing is, of course, Wolf's head of our Community Services Committee. So any thoughts or things you want to share in terms of material here today, or other things we should think about?
You want to take this one? I'll give this to Lily.
We have a table over there. I have some flyers that share some of the work that we're doing. So as Dr. Rob said, these folks, it's an outpatient treatment facility, and we can be base camp can be reimbursed for services, but there's no funding to help them along. So how successful can a patient be if they come from the woods and they're in treatment for 5 hours a day, and at the end of that treatment day, they have nowhere to go? They have no safe, sober place to go. They have no food. They have no way to get to their, you know, to where they need to be. So those are the things that donations and funding are used for, to help give these patients a fair chance and put them in the best position possible to be successful. And we see it happen. And so that's what we're focused on. So information is over at the table. We are hosting our first golf outing. It's going to be at the Golf Club of Dublin, and that's in May. I have information there about that. And I'll follow up. We need a lot of support, but if you would like to make a donation, there's information there about Fund the Climb. So thank you so much.
One more question for both of you. We spent a couple of years, I mean, we've had a lot of Rotary focus on addiction. I noticed that Will said specifically it was actually prescribed medicines that got them started. Any other things that you might want to just educate us on, because we all have family and kids and friends that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. So we believe, and I say we, it's the medical community, especially in addiction. And I will tell you that there's a lot of misinformation even among other physicians, but in the addiction community, we believe that there's a much stronger genetic component to this than we give it credit for. And that when I sit and talk to a patient and I'm doing an assessment, never do they not have somebody that, like a direct family member, a mother or father that struggle with addiction, aunts, uncles, somebody else in their family. So that tells me there's a genetic component, and it's the way that they process dopamine. And so a lot of times they'll say like, okay, well, a doctor prescribed me opiates and that's how I became addicted. But the truth is, when we really dig into the history of someone, there are addictive components to their personality even before they ever touched pills. It's just that once they've been escaping in different ways all along, and maybe like dabbling in different things. Once they hit their drug of choice, it's like light bulb goes off and they're like, this is living, right? And so so when someone gets, let me go into dopamine just a little bit. Do you think I should go? Okay, so
Yeah.
this is interesting, but I don't want to take too much time just in terms of education. Dopamine is the life force of the human race. It's the reason you get up in the morning, dopamine. You get a little dose of dopamine when you have closeness with friends and family, when you achieve something, when you have sex, when you eat a good meal, you get just a little hit of dopamine. You spend time with your child, a little dose of dopamine. That's why we live. We live for these little hits of dopamine. That's why we get up and if you didn't have dopamine, you couldn't get out of bed in the morning. So someone that's struggling with drugs or alcohol, they get 10 to 100 times the amount of dopamine from their drug of choice than these other things that I just described. So when you see someone down the path of addiction, what do you see? You see someone that their entire focus is on chemicals, their chemical, and they're not having sex, they're not eating, they're not bathing themselves or isolating from everyone, right? Because this is winning at like on a subconscious level. So it's almost like being hypnotized. This is like, this is what I'm just gonna put down here because of, so when we focus our treatment on down regulating that need for dopamine and kind of getting, starting with abstinence in terms of getting off of the chemicals and away from them, and then redirecting how we're going to get our, little hits of dopamine that are healthy sources of dopamine. That's kind of an overview of what that looks from a scientific standpoint. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Any other questions or? Okay, thank you guys so much for being here. As we mentioned, we know our clubs had a big passion around some of this work, and we very much appreciate you being here. If you could stay around for just a minute afterwards and maybe help folks know what materials available, that'd be great. I'll just mention that we have a closing quote from the founder of J.C. Penney's. It is the service that we're not obliged to give that people most value. With that, have a good week. We'll see you next week at the meeting. Thank you. Thank you.